When the king speaks, you listen. Getting a compliment from LeBron James is like graduating with a degree from Harvard. It just sets you apart. And when LeBron said this about Tyrese Haliburton in November of 2022, he was very right.
Haliburton is a really dynamic point guard, really good, very cerebral out there, and they took the game from us, so you give them credit.
Tyrese Haliburton is more than dynamic. He's generational. He's showcasing a level of offense that hasn't been seen before. And he and the Pacers have been a high-scoring juggernaut for the first quarter of the season. Let's start off by getting one thing straight. Tyrese Haliburton is the closest thing the NBA has to a true point guard since John Stockton retired. Like LeBron said, he's very cerebral with the basketball, and he has a knack for knowing how defenses will react and dissecting their every move before they even make the move. Hallie is far and away the best playmaking guard in the NBA right now, and he might just be the best playmaker in general. As a passer, he truly is generational. Through his first 17 games played this season, Hallie is averaging a whopping 12 assists a game and has the Pacers' offense looking absolutely unstoppable. The Pacers' offense has been the highest in the league this year, and that's mainly due to Hallie being their V6 engine. In fact, that engine has propelled them to not just the best in the league this year, but the best offense ever. Their offensive rating of 123.3 would destroy the previous record of 119.4 set by Tyrese's former team, the Kings, last season, and their 128 points per game would break the record for team points per game that was set by the Nuggets in 1982. These numbers are absolutely mind-blowing, especially when you consider that most of their production is coming from one guy, who they traded for. That Kings-Pacers trade will go down as one of the most highly explosive offensive swaps ever done in the history of the NBA. Two teams who had been in the dumps for quite some time traded a handful of players, and then both went and turned those players into some of the best offenses in basketball history. It's almost straight out of a movie. And if you've been watching the Pacers at all this season, you know that it feels less like NBA basketball and more like a Hollywood production. The Pacers are fun to watch, plain and simple. They play a style of basketball that in general can only be really compared to the Houston Rockets of the prime James Harden days. Their whole mentality is simple: score more points than the other team, no matter how many points the other team scored. You might be saying, well, duh, that's every team's goal. But is it really? Most teams have to strike a balance of getting enough defense to create stops and enough offense to turn those stops into points. But the Pacers have ignored all logic and decided that stops don't really matter, because no matter how much the other team scores, the Pacers will score more. They have turned a bad defense, one of the absolute worst in the league, into a fast and electric offense. Their pace of play is said to be among the fastest in NBA history and is reminiscent of the 60s, when NBA teams were running up and down the court and shooting at will. For those that don't know, the 60s were the highest scoring era of basketball. This was because players just weren't as good as shooting the ball. So to max out the inefficiency of their shooting, they'd shoot as many shots as possible in each game. The Pacers have basically taken this mentality and turned every setting to the maximum this season. They outrun everyone and shoot a lot of threes at really efficient marks. When they do get stops, which is rare, they almost always turn those stops into points. Just looking at some of the final scores from their games this season is all you need to know on how the Pacers play. They've won games 144-129, 157-152, 152-111, and they've lost games 126-137, 104-155, 132-142. These scores look like they came straight out of a game of 2K, but they're very real. So the offense is historic, but the main driving force behind this is simple. Head coach Rick Carlisle has given Tyrese Haliburton the reins to the offense. Hallie has become a superstar this season. The way he has guided this young Pacers squad to this never-before-seen level of offense is something we have rarely seen before. Only guys like LeBron, Larry Bird, Luka Doncic, or Michael Jordan have had this much of an impact on their team's offense at the age of 23. The Pacers are very young. They only have 3 players who have more than 5 years of experience in the NBA, and most of their roster is made up of guys who were drafted in 2020 and beyond. This is a gift and a curse, as their youth lets them run the court faster than any other team. But the lack of experience really shows on defense, where a lot of miscommunications and breakdowns happen. However, through all of this, Hallie has been a guide to his teammates and has maximized the efficiency of every player around him. Surrounding him aren't just young guys, but explosive athletes and scintillating scorers. Benedict Mathurin broke through last year as a human blowtorch. Obi Toppin is one of the best vertical spacers and leapers in all of basketball. Buddy Hield may be the most underrated shooter ever. Bruce Brown, Aaron Nesmith, and Jalen Smith have all been great on offense. But the glue holding them all together has been Tyrese Haliburton. He's used the threat of his own offense combined with his passing vision to open up a lot of clean looks for all of the Pacers. On the scoring side of everything, Haliburton is averaging some of the most efficient statistics you'll ever see. He's shooting 45% from 3, 52% overall, and almost 90% from the free throw line, all while only turning the ball over about twice a game. The best comparison for his game this year is a much more efficient version of 2017-18 James Harden. Like Harden, he carries the offense on his shoulders. He runs an excellent pick and roll with Miles Turner and Jalen Smith. And when defenses try to help, he never fails to find an open shooter. If all his playmaking options are shut down, he'll create space and use his unorthodox jump shot to rain down 3, or blow by and use his long arms to score at the rim with a variety of different angles and craftiness. But where he's most dangerous is in transition. And lucky for him, the Pacers play in transition more than any other team in NBA history. He constantly finds open guys streaking to the rim or spacing out for an uncontested 3. Or he'll pull up and make his own 3s in transition. The Pacers play in transition on makes or misses. As soon as the ball is taken out, they're already spaced out and ready to score. And Haliburton has used this to boost his team's offense to new heights. Like LeBron said, he's dynamic. He can do everything that makes a point guard great at the highest level. However, the team as a whole has some work to do in the coming years to become that powerhouse that they failed to become with PG 10 years ago. It's obvious where the Pacers and Haliburton can be better as a team, and I don't need to explain it too much to you, since everyone knows it. It's hard to rely on outscoring your opponents. We saw the 2019 Houston Rockets ride their offense to heights never before imagined. And then they missed 27 straight threes and lost in Game 7 of the Western Conference Finals. Even if your offense is historic or unbeatable, in the playoffs, if it falters for just one game, you could lose the entire season. The Pacers have made some strides to try and come close to balancing their team out. And even with their horrible defense, they still have the 9th best net rating in basketball. Guys like Bruce Brown, TJ McConnell, and Miles Turner are great defenders. Brown played a similar 3-and-D role on the Nets for a long time. Turner has been an elite shot blocker for a long time. And TJ has always been a hardworking, scrappy defender. But those are just 3 guys. No one else on this team is above average defensively. And if they plan on becoming a force in the East, they'll need to add some more defenders while not sacrificing much offense. Defensive specialists are rare to come by in the NBA. But with how fast the Pacers play and how good of a playmaker Hallie is, it'd be very easy for those defensive specialists to work out in their offense. Guys like Matisse Thybulle or Jared Vanderbilt would be perfect fits around Haliburton and their turbo speed defense. Hallie himself will need to improve as a defender. He has the length and size to do it, but miscommunications and blow-bys have been problems for him. If he can improve as a whole and the Pacers can add 2 or 3 more defensive pieces, that defensive rating could be about middle of the league, which is all they really need in order to become dominant when there's a guy like Tyrese Haliburton at the help. When LeBron said that Hallie was a dynamic point guard who was very cerebral, it came after a loss to the Pacers last season, where Hallie had 24 points and 14 assists in the Lakers' home arena. that stat line was only a taste of what was to come, as over the past year, he has become more than dynamic. He's molded into a bona fide superstar. If you want to have fun watching basketball, watch the Pacers this season. And make sure you do it now, because if Haliburton and the Pacers get a little bit better on the defensive side of the ball, you might get sick of watching them win all the time. This fun and fast-paced young squad could become the dominant force for years to come. And it's all thanks to one trade that gave them a generational talent in the magnificent, brilliant, and truly dynamic Tyrese Haliburton.